Hi, I'm Alex. I'm a software engineer who prefers staying quiet over making noise. But that Tuesday afternoon, my own sister, the bank manager at First National downtown, humiliated me in front of an entire lobby full of people just because I wanted to withdraw $100. Have you ever been judged by your own family based on how much money they think you have? Because what happened next will show you exactly why assumptions can destroy everything you think you know about someone. I remember walking into that marble-floored lobby wearing my usual faded jeans and a simple gray hoodie. Nothing fancy, nothing that screamed wealth. The afternoon sun streamed through those massive floor-to-ceiling windows, casting long shadows across the polished floors where well-dressed customers moved quietly between the teller stations. I took my place in line behind a woman in a designer coat and a man in an expensive suit, both of them checking their phones while they waited. The familiar sounds of a busy bank surrounded me, the soft clicking of keyboards, muted conversations, the occasional beep of the security system. Everything felt normal, routine, peaceful even. That's when I spotted her. Sarah stood behind the main customer service desk, her perfectly styled blonde hair catching the light as she gestured animatedly to one of her colleagues. She wore her standard navy blue blazer with the bank's gold pin positioned precisely on her lapel, every inch the professional bank manager our family had celebrated when she got promoted 6 months ago. For a moment, I considered switching to a different line. Our relationship had been complicated since Dad passed away 2 years ago. Sarah had always been the golden child, the one who got the praise, the attention, the family pride. I was just Alex, the quiet one who worked with computers and stayed in the background while she shined. But I needed that $100 for groceries, and this was the closest branch to my apartment. Simple transaction, in and out, no big deal. When my turn came, I approached the main desk where Sarah was finishing up with another customer. She looked up from her computer screen, and I watched her expression shift from professional politeness to barely concealed annoyance in the span of a heartbeat. "Alex?" Her voice carried just loud enough for the people around us to hear. "What are you doing here?" "I need to make a withdrawal," I said quietly, pulling out my wallet. "Just $100. That's when everything changed. Sarah's laugh cut through the quiet atmosphere like a knife. Not a small chuckle or a polite giggle, but a full, mocking laugh that made heads turn throughout the entire lobby. The woman in the designer coat looked over her shoulder. The man in the expensive suit paused his phone call. "We don't serve beggars here," Sarah announced, her voice carrying clearly across the marble surfaces. The words hit me like a physical blow. I felt my face flush hot as conversations around us began to die down. People were staring now, some pretending to look at their phones while obviously listening to every word. "Sarah, I just need—" "Look at you," she interrupted, gesturing at my clothes with a dismissive wave. "Coming in here looking like you just rolled out of bed. Do you have any idea how embarrassing this is for me? My colleagues are watching my own brother act like some kind of charity case." The lobby had gone nearly silent now. I could hear the soft hum of the air conditioning, the distant sound of traffic outside, but the usual chatter of customers had evaporated. Everyone was watching this public family drama unfold. "I have an account here," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Oh, please," Sarah rolled her eyes dramatically. "That checking account with what? Maybe $50 if you're lucky? Alex, I work here. I can see exactly how much money you don't have." She turned to her colleague, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes who looked deeply uncomfortable with the situation. "This is my brother," Sarah announced loudly enough for half the lobby to hear. "The one I told you about, still living like he's in college, still pretending he's going to make something of himself someday." The humiliation was complete and total. I felt like every eye in that bank was burning into me, judging me, pitying me. The security guard by the door had taken a step closer, clearly wondering if he needed to intervene. But instead of leaving, instead of backing down like I always did, I remained perfectly still. "Sarah," I said quietly, "I think you should reconsider." "Reconsider what?" She laughed again, that same cruel sound. "Alex, you're 32 years old. You dress like a teenager, you live alone in some tiny apartment, and you're asking me to help you withdraw your grocery money in front of my workplace. When exactly are you going to grow up and face reality?" The cruelty in her voice was shocking, even for Sarah. This wasn't just sibling rivalry or family dysfunction. This was deliberate, calculated humiliation designed to put me in my place once and for all. She leaned forward, lowering her voice just enough to create the illusion of privacy while still ensuring the nearest customers could hear every word. "You know what Dad used to say about you? That he worried you'd never amount to anything, that you'd always be the son who needed taking care of." That's when something inside me shifted. Not anger, exactly. Something colder, more resolute. I reached into my wallet, the same worn leather wallet I'd carried for 5 years, and pulled out a card. Not my regular debit card with the bright bank logo. This one was different. Completely black, no visible logos, no decorative elements. It looked almost ordinary, unremarkable. "What's that supposed to be?" Sarah asked, her voice dripping with skepticism. I didn't answer her directly. Instead, I looked past her to the senior teller at the next station, a distinguished-looking Asian man wearing a name tag that read, "Mr. Chin, Senior Manager." "Excuse me," I said politely. "I'd like to make a withdrawal." Sarah stepped sideways, trying to block my path to Mr. Chin's station. "Alex, stop making a scene. You're embarrassing both of us." But Mr. Chin had already noticed the interaction. His professional instincts kicked in as he observed what appeared to be a family dispute playing out in his bank lobby. He approached us with the careful diplomacy of someone who'd handled many difficult situations. "Is there something I can help with?" he asked. I held out the black card. "I need to access my account, please." "Mr." Chin took the card, glancing at it briefly before looking back at me with slightly raised eyebrows. "Of course, sir. If you'd like to step over to my station." "This is ridiculous," Sarah muttered, but I could hear uncertainty creeping into her voice for the first time. I followed Mr. Chin to his computer terminal, Sarah trailing behind us with an expression caught between annoyance and growing confusion. The other customers in the lobby had returned to their conversations, but I could feel their continued attention, their curiosity about how this family drama would resolve. Mr. Chin inserted the black card into his reader, his fingers moving efficiently across his keyboard. Then he stopped. His eyes widened slightly as he stared at his computer screen. He said quietly, looking up at me with a completely different expression. "Sir, I'm going to need to... I'll be right back." He walked quickly toward the back office area, the black card still in his hand, leaving Sarah and me standing at his station in awkward silence. "What's going on?" Sarah asked, and for the first time she sounded genuinely uncertain. "You never asked," I replied simply. That's when I noticed it. The tension that had been building for the past 10 minutes was about to break wide open, because that black card, the one Dad had given me 2 years ago with specific instructions about when and how to use it, was about to change everything my sister thought she knew about our family, about me, and about the assumptions she'd built her entire worldview around. The card that represented not just money, but a legacy she'd never even suspected existed. A responsibility I'd carried in silence while she mocked what she thought was my failure to launch. Mr. Chen returned from the back office, but he wasn't alone. He was accompanied by a woman in an expensive charcoal gray suit, someone I'd never seen before but who carried herself with the unmistakable authority of senior management. "Mr. Morrison," she said, extending her hand to me. "I'm Janet Williams, Regional Vice President. We need to discuss your account requirements." Sarah's face went completely white. Our last name was Morrison, but she'd clearly never connected the dots. Never wondered why Dad had been so calm about money, so unconcerned about the modest house we'd grown up in, so confident that everything would work out. "Alex," Sarah whispered, her voice barely audible. "What's happening?" But I wasn't ready to answer that question yet, because the real revelation, the moment that would flip her entire understanding of reality, was still coming. The moment when I would ask to withdraw not $100, not $1,000, but an amount so staggering that it would freeze every system in the building and bring her to her knees in front of everyone who had just witnessed her mock me as a beggar. $3.5 billion. And that black card in Mr. Chen's hand? It had the authorization to access every single penny. Ms. Williams gestured toward a private consultation room behind the main lobby, her movements precise and professional. "Perhaps we should discuss this in private, Mr. Morrison." But I shook my head. "Actually, I'd prefer to handle this right here." Sarah stood frozen beside me, her earlier confidence completely evaporated. The smugness that had filled her voice minutes ago was replaced by a growing panic as she watched this interaction unfold. She kept glancing between me, Ms. Williams, and the black card that Mr. Chen still held like it was made of pure gold. "Very well," Ms. Williams said, though I could see the concern in her eyes. She understood that whatever was about to happen would be visible to the entire lobby full of customers. I turned to face Sarah directly. "You asked what's happening. You want to know about this card, about why these people are treating me differently than you expected. Alex, 2 years ago, when Dad died, you were so focused on the funeral arrangements, on the house, on dividing up his personal belongings. You never asked about his business. You never wondered why a man who worked as a consultant could afford to send both of us to private schools, could pay for your MBA without taking loans." The lobby around us had grown quiet again. Other customers sensed the dramatic tension and slowed their own transactions to listen. "Dad was Morrison Industries," I continued. "Not an employee, not a consultant. The founder, the owner. The man who built a technology empire from nothing and then stepped back to let others run it while he raised his children." Sarah's mouth opened and closed without sound. I could see her mind racing, trying to reconcile this information with everything she thought she knew about our family. Ms. Williams cleared her throat gently. "Mr. Morrison, your father was very specific about the transition protocols. The board has been waiting for your instructions." "The board?" Sarah whispered. "Morrison Industries has been operating under a management trust for 2 years, I explained. Dad set it up that way. He wanted me to finish my education, to work in the real world, to understand technology from the ground up before I took control." Mr. Chen approached us carefully, still holding the black card. "Sir, to access the primary accounts, we'll need additional verification. The amounts involved require extensive protocols." That's when I realized Sarah still didn't understand the full scope of what was happening. She was processing the idea that Dad had been wealthy, but she hadn't grasped the magnitude. "What amounts?" she asked, her voice barely audible. I looked at Mr. Chen. "I'd like to withdraw $3.5 billion. The words fell into the marble-floored lobby like stones into still water. Complete silence. Even the soft background music seemed to pause. Sarah's legs buckled. She grabbed the edge of Mr. Chen's desk to steady herself, her face draining of all color. 3.5. She couldn't finish the sentence. Ms. Williams immediately activated crisis protocols. She spoke quietly into a handheld radio, summoning additional staff. Within seconds, 2 more senior managers appeared, their faces grave, with the understanding that they were dealing with a transaction that could affect the entire bank's daily operations. "Sir," Ms. Williams said carefully, "a withdrawal of that magnitude will require coordination with Federal Reserve protocols. We'll need to contact the Treasury Department, arrange for armored transport coordination, and—" "I don't actually need the cash," I interrupted. "I need the transfer authorized and the account access confirmed. This is about verification, not physical withdrawal." But the damage was done. Computer systems throughout the bank began triggering security alerts. The amount I'd requested exceeded the branch's insurance coverage, exceeded their daily transaction limits, exceeded anything most of these employees had ever seen. Sarah sank into a nearby chair, staring at me like she'd never seen me before in her life. "You're lying," she whispered, but there was no conviction in her voice. "This is some kind of joke, some kind of revenge fantasy." Mr. Chen's computer screen was flashing priority alerts. He showed it to Ms. Williams, who immediately reached for her phone. "I need to call the CEO," she announced. "A transaction of this magnitude requires board-level authorization." Alex, Sarah said, her voice breaking. I don't understand. If Dad had, why didn't you tell me? For the first time since this confrontation began, I sat down. Not in the chair next to her, but close enough that we could speak without the entire lobby hearing every word. Because Dad asked me not to, I said simply. He said wealth changes people. He said money reveals who people really are, but it also corrupts who they might become. He wanted both of us to develop our own identities first. But I worked so hard, Sarah protested, tears starting to form in her eyes. The MBA, this job, trying to build a career? And you did build a career. You became a successful bank manager through your own efforts. Dad would be proud of that. But you've been living like you're poor. The apartment, the clothes. Because I am poor, I said. I make $60,000 a year as a software engineer. I live within my means. The inheritance doesn't change who I am day to day. Ms. Williams returned, her expression serious. Mr. Morrison, I've spoken with our CEO and the Federal Reserve liaison. They're sending a team to verify the transaction. This level of account access hasn't been triggered in this region in over 15 years. Around us, I could see other customers beginning to realize that something extraordinary was happening. Phones were coming out. People were whispering to each other. The energy in the lobby was building toward something that felt almost electric. Sarah looked up at me with red-rimmed eyes. When you said you needed $100, I genuinely needed $100 for groceries, I confirmed. I wasn't testing you or setting up some elaborate revenge. I just needed cash, and this was the closest bank to my apartment. But I called you a beggar. I said... Her voice broke completely. Oh, God, Alex, what did I do? That's when the full weight of her behavior hit her. Not just the mockery, not just the public humiliation, but the cruelty she'd shown to someone she believed was struggling financially. The complete lack of empathy she'd displayed toward her own brother. I called you worthless, she whispered. I said Dad thought you'd never amount to anything. Dad never said that, I told her quietly. In fact, he said the opposite. He said you were brilliant with people and money management, but that you sometimes let your ambition cloud your compassion. He hoped that would change as you matured. A commotion near the bank's main entrance interrupted our conversation. 3 people in dark suits had arrived, accompanied by a woman carrying a briefcase marked with federal identification. The Federal Reserve team Ms. Williams had mentioned. The lead agent approached our group. Mr. Morrison? Agent Peterson, Federal Reserve Bank of New York. We need to conduct immediate verification of this transaction request. The entire lobby was watching now. Every conversation had stopped. Every customer was staring at our little group clustered around Mr. Chen's desk. Some were openly recording with their phones. Sarah, I said quietly, I need you to understand something. This isn't about the money. This was never about the money. She looked up at me, mascara streaked down her cheeks, her professional composure completely shattered. It's about how you treat people when you think they have nothing to offer you. It's about who you are when you believe you have all the power in a relationship. It's about the choice between compassion and cruelty when you think no one important is watching. Agent Peterson had connected a laptop to the bank's system and was running authentication protocols on my black card. Green lights appeared on his screen, one after another, as each layer of security confirmed my identity and account access. Verification complete, he announced to Ms. Williams. Mr. Morrison is authorized for the requested withdrawal amount. All federal protocols have been satisfied. That's when Sarah broke completely. She slid out of her chair and dropped to her knees right there on the marble floor in front of the entire lobby. Customers gasped, some covering their mouths in shock, others continuing to record as the bank manager who had been mocking a customer 15 minutes earlier now knelt before him in complete emotional collapse. Alex, please, she sobbed, her professional facade utterly destroyed. Please forgive me. I was so wrong, so incredibly wrong. I don't know why I said those things, why I was so cruel. I knelt down next to her, ignoring the dozens of people watching us. Sarah, look at me. She raised her tear-streaked face. I forgive you, I said simply. But you need to understand what just happened here. You humiliated someone you believed was vulnerable. You used your position of power to make someone feel worthless. The fact that I turned out to have money doesn't change the cruelty of what you did. I know, she whispered. I know, and I hate myself for it. Don't hate yourself. Learn from it. Become better. I helped her stand up, aware that every person in that lobby was witnessing this moment of reconciliation. Ms. Williams and her staff maintained respectful distance, but I could see the relief in their faces that this dramatic situation was resolving peacefully. The money doesn't define me, I continued, speaking loud enough for the nearby customers to hear. Just like the lack of money doesn't define anyone else. Dad taught me that wealth is a responsibility, not a trophy. It's supposed to help people, not elevate yourself above them. Sarah wiped her eyes with her sleeve, trying to regain some composure despite the public breakdown she'd just experienced. What happens now? She asked quietly. I pulled the worn leather wallet back out of my pocket and carefully placed the black card back in its slot next to my regular debit card and my grocery store loyalty card. Now I go buy groceries, I said, just like I planned to do an hour ago. The crowd of onlookers began to disperse as the drama reached its conclusion. Conversations gradually resumed, though I could hear whispered discussions about what they'd just witnessed. But the company, Sarah asked. Morrison Industries. What are you going to do? What Dad trained me to do. Run it responsibly. Use the resources to create jobs, develop technology that helps people, and try to make the world a little better than I found it. I turned to Ms. Williams, who had been observing our entire family reconciliation with professional interest. I won't actually be withdrawing the $3.5 billion today, I told her with a slight smile. But I would like to withdraw that $100 I originally came for. She laughed, the first moment of levity in what had been an incredibly tense afternoon. I think we can arrange that, Mr. Morrison. As Mr. Chen processed my simple $100 withdrawal, I put my arm around Sarah's shoulders. You know what Dad always said about true wealth? I asked her. She shook her head. He said it whispers. It never shouts. The people who really have it don't need to prove it to anyone, and the people who don't have it deserve the same respect and kindness as everyone else. Sarah nodded, understanding flooding her face. I have a lot to learn, she said quietly. We all do. That's what makes us human. As I walked toward the bank's exit, I could hear Sarah behind me speaking to her colleagues, presumably trying to explain the previous hour's events. The lobby had returned to its normal rhythm, but I knew the story of what happened that afternoon would be told and retold for years to come. Have you ever been underestimated by someone who thought they knew your story? Have you ever had someone judge your worth based on your appearance or their assumptions about your life? I'd love to hear about it in the comments below. Because the truth is, we all deserve dignity and respect, regardless of what's in our bank accounts. And sometimes, the quiet ones are carrying more than anyone realizes.